So this is Dr. Ibrahim Jaffe, and we're going to be talking about spiritual healing. Now, the door of spiritual healing is, for me, a critical door because we all, sooner or later, are going to be facing illness in our lives. And we all are going to and are facing suffering. And I don't know anybody who gets out of that. In other words, no matter who we are, we face troubles in our lives. Life is not just about ease and joy. There are an aspect of life which is troubles. And I don't know any family, any person that doesn't have some level of this. So what do we do when we find that we all of a sudden have an illness? How do we deal with that? What do we do when a child is born and it's anoxic? It doesn't get the oxygen it needs to its brain, and it appears maybe that it might have some type of damage. What do we do when we lose a job and we're suffering, or in a relationship where something goes wrong? How do we deal with these situations? Well, certainly we can change the outside of things. In other words, we can try to give the child oxygen. Perhaps there are some drugs, or we can put the child on a cooling blanket and try to cool it down, so perhaps the brain will heal itself. So there are certainly medical things we can do. In relationship, we can go to counseling. We try to work out the issues between us, this type of thing. But the deeper inner aspect of spiritual healing is what the spirit is learning through this situation so that the situation can resolve. In other words, what are the divine qualities and what are the spiritual teachings that are necessary? So in spiritual healing, what we're doing is working out what these teachings and qualities are, and then we're healing what is within ourselves that is creating that situation, even though it may appear to be very, very hidden or very subtle. In other words, why might a child be born with a lack of oxygen? Well, you could say, well, it's simply cord compression. No big deal. It has to do with position of the child. Well, in a way, that's true. Absolutely. But you see, in a deeper way, there's always a spiritual reason. Why did this occur? What's the reason for this? Well, sometimes you have to look back at the family. Maybe inside that family, there's something strangling that family. Maybe there is some type of abuse or some type of struggle that got played out within the family that was brought through that ended up with this child. Now, why does God allow the child to do that? Well, unfortunately, this is part of what happens. The children carry the legacies of the family. All children do. In other words, if your child is born into a family that has problems, the child is going to learn those processes. They're going to understand things the way they were brought forward, and the child will carry them. So in spiritual healing, we seek, even in what appears to be the most subtle ways, we find out what is going on that caused it. So if there was a family problem, there are ways to heal and to release the anger, the fear, the pain in that family so that the child has a much greater chance of healing. And my personal experience is that if we can find the true roots, the spiritual roots, not just the outer roots, but the deep inner spiritual roots of suffering, of illness, and we begin to heal those things through the process of spiritual healing, we see dramatic changes in people's lives. Very, very deeply dramatic changes. And the process of spiritual healing, in essence, is a very simple process. It includes, number one, the ability to what I call diagnose or understand what is causing the problem. How do we find it? And there are ways to do that. The second thing is what I call the treatment, the spiritual treatment, which is once we understand the causes, how do we alleviate those causes in a proper way? Okay? And this teaching of spiritual healing will discuss how we do that. What is the process? How does one do that? How does one find those things? How does one heal those things so that the causes can disappear?